And welcome to the Dose of Bliss show, where I have the best people give you their daily doses of bliss. And today we're doing something completely different. I had you guys send in your relationship questions. So we're going to have this show revolve all around the questions that you have sent in to me. And I have the perfect person to answer them for you. He is a relationship expert, a communication expert, a podcaster, and his name is Robert Kandell, known as the Modern Mentor.
Hello.
Mentor?
Mentor. Mentor.
Thank you for being here.
My
That's
pleasure.
A perfect segue. Can you explain what the Modern Mentor is?
Well, it's a play on the word mentor for men, because men in this day and age need mentors to show up. And I've done the work, and I'm proud to share the work I've done and share my experience.
That's amazing. And a little background for the people who don't know you, like, what about your experiences led you to this?
Well, I was normal till I was 28.
You're like, I was normal.
I was normal. I was living the life laid out to me by my mom and dad and culture. And then 28, I went to Burning Man, had my whole life etch-a-sketched by that experience. And then I came back to San Francisco with my first wife, Carol, and just started to throw myself into personal development and learning all these incredible things about things I didn't know. I was sort of numb and dumb, and we came back to the world and started to research it. And 2004, started a company called One Taste. Took that from a paper napkin sketch to an eight-figure international business. Taught classes, over 400 workshops. Taught men's workshops, communication workshops, and now I have a book and do private coaching in Los Angeles.
That's like amazing. That's why I'm so excited, because when I put my fans have been messaging me telling me to do relationship shows. So the response was overwhelming today. And it was great because they have so many questions that apply specifically to the things you talk about. And the biggest topic that seemed to be in general of everything is about communication and setting boundaries in a relationship. And so I just am so excited to ask you these questions. So if you're ready, I can.
Hit me.
Okay, so our first question, so we've never done this before. These are questions that you guys have asked me. Is from Aria. She commented on Facebook, and she wants to know, what's the best way to bring up deep topics like money and sex and important sensitive topics in a relationship?
The first thing is to know everyone has these questions. No one has been taught the skills to have them. Most people treat sex like they're Navy SEALs. They dive in the middle of the night in the dark without communication, do the deed, and then try to get out. There's no education of how to talk about these topics. The way I recommend is to say to your partner, hey, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. Do you have time tonight to set some time, intimate time, that we can chat about something? Now, immediately they're gonna be like, what? Tell me what it is. They'll get nervous, but just say, no, everything's fine. I just wanna talk to you about some things. And then set up a set period of time where you can have no interruptions, no cell phones, no music, no kids, like really have the space to communicate. And in that, start to slowly reveal the parts of yourself that you're curious about or have questions about in an interactive, collaborative, slow fashion. In other words, you set time for your gym, you set time for your coffee, you set time for your other hobbies. Set time to have intimate conversations with people you want to be close to.
And that goes for bringing up money as well.
Sure.
And actually, that would bring to a good topic when you're talking about money when it comes to if you're a girl and a guy. Say you're the girl in the relationship, but you're making more money than the guy.
Much more common now. Yeah.
It's more common now, but we've been conditioned the other way around. And I feel like everyone's still used to a little bit the way they were raised. A man he does want to be the provider. A girl often does want to be a nurturer. So now that the roles are getting flipped, people find it being a conflict. How can you navigate that?
I've been reading and writing a lot about this very specific topic, because the underlying thing that's happened is that we've had the patriarchy for 6,000 years, but we've had this really epic evolution in the last 50 of women coming into power. In 1970, a woman couldn't even get her own credit card without her husband's signature, and here we are 50 years later, and women are financially independent, 401ks coming to the boardroom. So just know, for a man, he's been handed the scripts from fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and other generations, 6,000 years of history. And so to understand, for a man, he might not even be aware of his biases because it's so well ingrained. So if a woman's making more money and you notice it's creating a disparity or disconnection in the relationship, again, just be like, hey, I could tell this might be uncomfortable for you. I don't know what you're feeling. Would you let me into your world about this? Become an ally, become a teammate for the connection, rather than most men try to hide it and try to think, I can solve this without talking about it.
And what about how women can deal with it? Because from what I find from a lot of women that I know is they still want a guy who's equal or above. I feel like that's still where they're at. Even if, girls are all like, yes, power, we're doing this, but we still want a man like that. So what if they're not there yet? Or they're not there and the woman's struggling with that? How can they rationalize the thought being like, it's a different time now?
Well, just to know it's a different time now and it's going to happen. So for a woman to do the inside work, to look at her biases, to look at the connotation, and this is difficult to do by yourself. I do recommend a therapist, a coach, a women's group, some way to get reflection outside of yourself, but really it's happening more and more. So, okay, what does it mean if the man is making less? What is the story? What is the connotation? How does it affect things? How does it affect your sexual desire? How does it affect the way you relate to them? Do you look at them as less? And what are your unconscious biases that you have that are impacting the relationship? In other words, do your work.
Yeah, and what other ways can people satisfy you and make you feel supported in a relationship that don't have to do with money? Because I personally think there's more than money, that things money can't buy. You can be the richest person in the world, but if you're not there for a person when they need you, what do you have? So do you have any tips of other ways people can be there for each other?
There's so many ways. I mean, for my personal example, I make more money than my wife, and yet she's my muse. She's my motivation. She's the one who checks up on everything I do. She's my intellectual partner, and she shows me so many things. And so even though I'm the one making the money, I credit the system that we've created, the union between the two of us, her feminine, my masculine, the coming together. So again, it's just really get out of your box and out of your unconscious biases and start to pull the lens back to see, oh, he makes me happy, therefore I'm able to work more. That's interesting, instead of he's not making the money. And so again, it often takes a third person with experience to reflect, but to get out of the unconscious.
And same
stories.
for the guy, seeing that there are other things that you do
sure.
to make someone happy. And this actually brings me to our next question from social media. We have @NateRosen from Instagram, and he said, some women say they want chivalry and feminism. So how do you navigate that? Because in his viewpoint, it seems like they're kind of opposing. You want feminism, but you want a man to still be old-fashioned and chivalrous.
Yeah, this is the thing that drives guys nuts, is their viewpoint on the mixed messages, the unclarity. But here's what I'm going to tell most men. Women want you to dance. They want you to react. They want you to notice. They want you to play. They don't want you to walk in with a set viewpoint. This worked with the last woman, it's going to work with this woman, because every woman's different and every woman changes, as the wind blows. And you want that. You want a dynamic woman. So sometimes she wants you to be the big man holding things, taking care of things. Other times she just wants you to listen. But mostly she wants you to see as equals, and also that she's going to shift and learn to dance with her.
And then we have another question from Facebook, from Gabriel, and he says, when people say, this is about being complete in a relationship.
Okay.
So he says, when people say they want to be completed or they're looking for their other half, what does that mean?
That means they're looking for a codependent relationship.
Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yes. Again, society, movies. There was a BuzzFeed video on the 10 things romantic movies do wrong. It was hilarious. And I can send you the link and you can put it in the show notes.
I took a class actually on this, unrealistic romances.
Yeah, exactly. And so what it is really the romantic movies set up codependent relationships. What's the Tom Cruise, you complete me. Like, it's not that. I educate people to come in as full, complete human beings. And then the other person doesn't complete me, they activate me. They push me, they up-level me, they offer the opportunity to get better and better. But if you're looking for another person to complete you, you're begging for a mediocre codependent relationship.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to look at it because I think people always think like I have a soulmate, I'm looking for my other half. And it also leaves people feeling like they're wanting something and, they don't, and you might end up, I think it adds to relationships being more, toxic because the people are kind of relying on the other person and the other person doesn't answer their phone. Where are they? I'm freaking out. And you're just not a good situation. You need to feel whole yourself.
Right. Well, because people, mostly men, are what I call external validation junkies. We look externally for proof that we're doing it right. For men, it's the bank account, it's the attractive woman partner, it's the power, it's the type of car they drive. We look externally to say that we're doing it right. For women, it's tends to be how attractive they are or how much they can magnetize people to them. But it's a false trap because if you only look externally for validation, it's like a bad bet. It's a bad investment. I teach people to find internal validation, to know that they're badasses, to know that they're the cat's meow just by themselves, and then their partner or the external trappings is the extra, the gravy, the ice cream on top of the apple crumble, right? It's the extra that makes it wonderful, but you're just fine by yourself.
Yeah, it's like the flavor that you put in and you're like, wow, these like meld together. Next question from our guest. It's from Sammer on Instagram, and he's actually has another perspective of gay relationships.
Right.
And I know you talk about that a lot on your podcast as well. He says he feels like dating gay men is harder than straight people. So what are your thoughts on that? He wants to know, are there differences in communications?
Well, I'm not an expert on same-sex relationships, so let me just say that up front. But my perspective is this concept around polarity. Polarity is something that David Data talks a lot about. It's really the masculine and feminine pole. So if you have two gay men who tend to both be masculine, then there's a lack of polarity. It's like two positive magnets kind of pumping up against each other. But if you have a masculine man and a more feminine man, then it tends to work better. So it's not so much the gender and the sexuality, the sexual orientation. It has a lot to do with the polarity that exists between them.
Like the energies that are there that balance each other.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to be butting heads.
Exactly.
Which actually leads to the next topic, which is conflict and setting boundaries. So I thought this was a really interesting question for someone on Instagram. His Instagram is at KHAS1986. And he said, do you feel that most relationships fail these days because men fail to connect on an emotional level?
I think what's happened in the last 50 years, to go back to the previous point, is that women are coming more in their power. In doing so, they're starting to say, what worked for my mothers and grandmothers isn't working. So in other words, women are starting to raise the bar of expectations, of needs, and men are now being called to step up. You look at this in terms of statistics. Men and women are getting married much later now, or not at all. People are having children later. And with women with their own financial stability, no longer need a man to survive. And so what's happened in the last 50 years is that the bar has been raised. In doing so, men are being called to expand and grow and learn the important balance of emotional intelligence compared to just physicality or the IQ and the EQ in addition to the IQ. So it's a call for men to be more. And there's a percentage of men that are answering the call, but there's a larger percentage of men who are not answering the call, heading to video games, going to extended adolescence, and not stepping up to meet a powerful modern woman.
So we only have a few minutes left. So before I ask you about you, my last question on this topic, actually going in line with all the questions from people, comes from Amanda from Facebook, and she wants to know, how do you set those boundaries? So say these conflicts are happening because of the imbalances. How do you stand up to a person, say they're disrespecting you or there's some sort of conflict, and you respectfully can call them out on it and get to the next steps?
Well, the first is to do the inner work of knowing you're worth the boundaries. If you don't have boundaries with yourself, if you don't believe you're worthy of those boundaries, there's really no way to communicate to another to hold those boundaries. So again, do your own inner work and get support, coach, therapist, gender group, get help for you to know that you're worthy of your boundaries. Get in a relationship with those boundaries. And then the second most important piece is be willing to say, these are my bottom lines. If you, my partner, don't meet them, this is over. It's like you got to be willing to let it go to have the optimal relationship.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you're, forcing a person to be someone they're not.
Nope.
You just have to let them know, these are my boundaries. This is what I need in a relationship. And it's okay if you can't be that, but this is what I need. And I have to move on if you can't do that. And so do you.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we only have a few minutes left. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your book and your final thoughts.
My book is called Unhidden, a book for men and those confused by them, which basically is
Pretty
a
much
lot of people, everyone. It's a pragmatic guide for people in the 21st century to learn how to relate in these changing times. I actually wanted a really complex, esoteric book, but I really wrote it as a pragmatic story, my own story, very pragmatic ideas that you can take into your relationship immediately. And it's really written for everyone. Both men and women have read it and gotten value for it. So it's really a way for men and women to relate in this chaotic 21st century.
And where can people find it at?
It is on Amazon. You can find Unhidden by Robert Kandell, or you can go to my website, robertkandell.com, and there's links all over.
I mean, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Where can everyone find you? But we just said that. So thank you so much for coming to the show. You guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel. Subscribe wherever you're at. If you're watching this on EverTalk TV or you don't know what that is, go to the EverTalk TV app. You can binge watch all the episodes on demand, and I post them every Thursday on YouTube. Really hope you like this episode. Comment below if you want your comments to be featured and your questions to be featured in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with your next dose of bliss. Bye.